Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to the second channel, the sister channel to Hannah the Horrible. And this is day 3 of our spooktacular week where we're doing 7 scary story videos in 7 days leading up and including on Halloween. I have nothing else to say. No intros. Let's get into it. Here's story 1. Hi, Hannah. Leanne from Cape Town, South Africa here, or just human will suffice. Ooh, I love this. Someone from South Africa. That's exciting. We have 2 stories on this one. The first one goes, my grandma always told me how much my grandpa would have loved to meet his grandkids, how he would have spoiled us rotten, and how much he loved and spoiled his own kids on almost a daily basis. This is my mom's parents. I was the firstborn grandkid on both sides, and so it's very sad to me that my granddad never got to meet or spend time with any of his grandkids at all. When I was about 3 years old, shortly after the birth of my baby brother, second grandkid on both sides, and both sides means my mom and dad's side of the family, my mom took us to see my granny, and I was left in the main bedroom coloring on the bed. My mom and gran went to have coffee in the kitchen. After a while of coloring, I looked up and a man was sitting in front of me on the bed. He was smiling at me with the biggest, warmest smile. I could still see it so clearly. He wore a brown 3-piece suit, almost like he was bathed in sepia? What's sepia? I don't know what that is. Is that a South African thing? I'm just kidding. Let me see. Oh, it's a shade of brown. A reddish brown color associated particularly with monochrome photographs of the 19th and early 20th centuries. Oh my God, I'm so dumb sometimes. So sorry. Taylor, you can leave that in. I said hi and he stayed silent. So I got off the bed and went to the kitchen to call my gran. Now, the rest of this story was confirmed by my granny years later when I was in my late teens after I finally plucked the courage to ask her about it. Side note, my mom died when I was 6, so I couldn't ask her to confirm it. I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh my gosh, no words. I ran into the kitchen and told my mom and gran that the doctor was here. And my gran, very confused, said they didn't let anyone in. Both ladies ran through the house, checked the front door and all the rooms, and no one was there. I found old wedding photos from my parents' wedding when my gran eventually moved house and found a picture of my grandparents. And I saw my granddad in that same brown 3-piece suit. Everyone always said that he was my guardian angel, and I think he just came to meet me just once. Oh, that's so wholesome. I love an old grandpa ghost story. Okay, this is their second story. This was from, I already forgot, I'm so sorry, Leanne. And hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. This is Leanne from Cape Town, South Africa's second story. So this is a creepy story with a very plausible explanation at the end. Ooh, love those. When I was about 16 or 17, my friend's boyfriend was 18 and drove. And bless his heart, he used to cart us all over the show on the daily. One evening, we were going to all hang out, me, Elle, my friend E, and her boyfriend G. They picked me up just as it turned dark and the stars were becoming visible. As we departed from my house, not really having a definitive plan of action and still discussing what to do for the evening, I glanced out the rear window and noticed 5 round, bright lights in the sky, all in a very straight line. I pointed them out to my friends. As we drove, they seemed to follow us. And getting paranoid now, as a group, we decided to drive in a weird pattern all around the neighborhood to see if they were following us. They were. So we decided to leave our neighborhood and drive further away. They followed, getting really scared, and went to G's parents' house a few neighborhoods over. They followed. We stopped there, ran inside, and told his parents everything. They came out and looked, saw the lights, which looked to be drifting off in another direction, still in formation. So we got back in the car and decided to drive about 20 minutes away to other friends of ours, S and W. Soon as we got back on the road, the lights were on our tail. At this point, we were terrified and sped up to reach our destination. We arrived where S and W lived and stood in their yard watching the 5 lights veer sharp left, still in a straight line formation, and beeline to the mountains. After telling my dad, an Army veteran, all about our experience, he said, "It sounds like Army helicopters doing drills. They usually pick a civilian vehicle to follow." Oh, Army or alien, you decide. Either way, super creepy. Thanks for sharing. Love the channel, love the content, and love your energy. Keep doing what you're doing, Leanne. Thank you so much, Leanne. I love the explanation at the end. I was just thinking, because I was like, how does this possibly have an explanation when it was following you around? But that's so interesting. That makes sense. I wonder how many alien spottings can be explained by, I mean, I kind of think a lot of alien spottings can be explained by various military activity and vehicles. In my personal opinion, the Oakville Blobs mystery was most likely, again, in my opinion, I have no proof of this, but most likely some sort of military test. That's what I think personally. So I just think a lot of weird mysteries throughout the ages, it would make sense, right, that it was military related, because not only do they do weird out of the ordinary things for testing and for things like this, but they often cause mysteries because they aren't allowed to talk about it. It's often top secret stuff, so they can't explain to civilians what they're doing. And so I think a lot of the time that causes a lot of paranormal experiences, or what people think are paranormal experiences, but they end up being something involved with the military, and nobody's ever going to tell you that it was the military. You know what I mean? So anyway, I love that. I love that explanation. Still would have been really freaky in the moment. Thank you so much for your story, Leanne. Okay, story number 2 starts, "Hi Hannah, I came across your videos recently and have subsequently binged just about every upload. This spring, I wrote down my experience with being followed in the woods behind my house. More questions arise for me as time passes, so I have decided to finally share this. I truly appreciate how you handle each story with care and respect, so I feel that mine is in good hands. This might be a long one, so I preemptively apologize." Okay, and a content warning for this story. This writer, I think this is an anonymous person, said essay at the very end, but mostly in the form of a news report, as well as a slight mention of drug use, just weed. But it also sounds like this is going to be a similar story. We just told one of these stories yesterday about another young woman stalked in the woods and followed and stuff like that. So I don't know if any of that's a button for you. Just know that that's coming, and you can always move on to the next story. There's always timestamps down below if you don't want to hear this story. So yeah, let's start it. I'm a little scared. It was about 8 p.m. when my younger sister came to me asking for help dyeing her hair. It had been a long day for all of us, so I suggested that we go smoke a joint before we got started. Hopefully it was going to distract me from the next however many hours I would be on my feet inhaling bleach and hair dye fumes. Normally we would just step out the back door, but on this night, our next door neighbors were out and about in their own backyard and having some sort of get together. Not wanting to be an awkward nuisance, we decided to walk up the path behind our neighborhood instead. The path went all through the woods, connecting the nearby neighborhoods and parks, as well as the local police station. Yes, I know that it is beyond stupid to go smoke behind a police station, but there was enough foliage covering us, and I didn't think we'd be spotted. And honestly, this station made walking around in the woods feel much safer. Oh no, I have a feeling that it was an illusion of safety that by the time we get to the end of the story. Usually this trail is full of runners, kids on bikes, or people walking their dogs. However, since it was already late and had just started raining, we figured that we were in the clear. We started down the path, come to find out we were right. Not only was it wet and rainy, the trails were slippery and the nearby river provided a pretty heavy fog. We joked about how creepy the woods looked at this point, and it looked like a stereotypical horror movie set, and we were getting a kick out of it. We didn't see a single other person as we continued further down the path and now deeper into the woods. We set up camp on a wooden bridge, which was about a 5 to 10 minute walk away from the start of the path. We put on a podcast, lit up the joint, and started shooting the shit. Our joint was about halfway smoked when I noticed a light coming towards us. It looked like a runner with a flashlight on, coming from the part of the path that connects only a busy road and the back of the police station. Now, I'm not sure why I did this, but as soon as I saw the light ahead, I muttered something about needing to leave to my sister. I turned around, and in one swift motion, I grabbed everything we had brought out with us and started walking. I didn't have a bad feeling at this point. Looking back, we've been in those woods 1,000 times, but never once did we pack up and leave at the first sight of a runner. Usually, they're the friendly ones if we do encounter other people in the woods while we're out smoking. At this point, I just wanted to head out first and put enough room between us and whoever that was to finish the joint as we walked home. hopefully to not disturb them. We had been walking out like normal until we hit the final hill of the path. This takes you out of the woods and along the asphalt path back to whichever neighborhood you're headed to. I looked behind me for the first time since we started walking back. I saw the flashlight of that person only a couple 100 feet behind where we were. They only had one more curve to walk before us, and whoever this was would be out of the woods and walking the long path that directly connects to our house. They were much closer than I expected, but I still thought nothing of it at this point. Jokingly, I grabbed my sister and said, "Go, go, go," ushering us into a clearing in the woods. We would be out of eyesight and we could finish the joint there. Clearly, whoever was behind us had places to be, and I didn't want any trouble. We expected to just see the light of this person jog on past and continue up the hill to their own house. Instead, this person continued to cut through the grass and to the clearing, just as we had. I do that too. Mostly because of Winnie, too. If it's daytime, I'm not scared, but mostly need to have people pass me because my dog will freak out if somebody's following us. But I've also done that. If I don't have Winnie with me and I'm walking because she's at daycare or something like that, I'll just straight up like pretend to look at my phone if there's like a man behind me or a group of people or something like that, just because I'm so untrustworthy. I don't trust anybody until they prove to me that they can be trusted. And I will just kind of walk off the path and just casually pretend to look at my phone while they pass so that I feel like I'm not being followed. So I think that's a really understandable thing to do, to like go in the clearing. But you're saying this person did not just walk by, they followed you into the clearing. Red flag. 1,000 thoughts were going through my head now. Was someone looking for us? Is this a cop? Are we busted? Is this just a nosy neighbor trying to film us or something? As we backed up deeper into the forest, I watched as the flashlight came deeper and deeper into the clearing that we were hiding in. I tossed the joint. If this was a cop and they found us hiding, I didn't want them to find anything on me. We crouched down now as whoever this seems to be coming in after us. I grab my sister and pull her down onto the floor of the woods. We lay there, our faces pressed against grass and twigs, while this flashlight continued to scan the entire perimeter of the woods. They seemingly weren't walking in after us now, though. They scanned the woods for a good 6 to 8 minutes. Oh my God, I bet that was the longest 8 minutes of your entire life. When the light seemed to spot us, it looked as if this person had crouched down and started crawling. I remember their light spilling out between the leaves in front of me and decided to put my head down completely. I was petrified to not be able to see where this person was anymore, but I was so sure their flashlight was going to catch a glare in my glasses. I was debating in my head the idea of just getting up and turning myself in. This must be a cop, right? I realized then that though this person was obviously following and now looking for us, I hadn't heard a single footstep. No radio sounds, no jingle of handcuffs, no swishing of fabric as they ran after us. No one announced themselves as if we were in any kind of trouble, and they knew that we ran, not even twigs snapping or rustling in the bushes. This flashlight wasn't even bright enough to be police issued. My blood ran cold at this point. If it wasn't a cop, who or what was this? There was no way I could outrun this person. The only way we could run being directly out towards them anyway. The only thing I could think to do was try and contact any family members who could possibly be home and get them to scare this freak off. Looking back, it would have been better to call the cops right then and there, but I didn't want to incriminate ourselves further if we were really just being chased by police. That's understandable. Remember those days when it's so funny now because like reading your story, I'm like, it's just so funny. At least in Washington and many other states, weed is totally legal now. And you can literally go down the street to a store and buy as much as you want. And it's so wild that it's like, I totally understand. Like, not only are you underage, like you're supposed to be 20. I'm assuming you're underage here. You're supposed to be 21. So you would get in trouble for that. And I also understand even a few years ago, it was like, it was a drug. I mean, it is a drug, but it was like as bad as being caught with something else on you back in the day. So it's just so interesting that you're like thinking through, like, how do I get out of this without getting in trouble with police and stuff? It was just so interesting. It was just a different time, even just a few years ago. I got as close as possible to my sister and whispered for her to pull her phone out, keep it hidden under her body, and text everyone home to come out to the woods right now screaming for us. She was able to completely keep the light of her phone screen under her hoodie. The flashlight was still scanning the perimeter of the woods, but not as intently as before. With how my head was on the ground, I'm angled to see this person walking out on the only path they'd have. One led back to where we came from, the other continued on the other houses in our neighborhood. The light never left. It didn't go out abruptly either. As we were waiting for someone to basically come save us, it seemed like this creep had put their flashlight against their palm, so we'd be completely in the dark now. There's no footsteps of anyone leaving in either direction of the path. Whoever this is was waiting us out. Less than a minute after the light dissipates, my sister's mom... Oh, I'm guessing it's a half-sister or stepsister or something. My sister's mom comes out screaming for us. We hear her running down the path and see her walk into the empty grass clearing right before you enter the woods. In my head, this would still get us caught if we were running from a cop or a nosy neighbor, even if they walked off without us noticing or really did stay in the woods waiting for us. I truly have no idea, but she was loud enough and no human would have nearly enough time to get away in that time frame. She walked us out of the woods and back up the path to our house. I scanned the tree line and all the connecting paths as we walked home. I didn't see a damn thing. That is so scary. This sounds like it's out of a freaking horror novel. That is so scary. I don't know how you didn't pee your pants. I would have soiled myself. And thank God for your sister's mom. Bless her for coming and for seeing her text and running out, taking it seriously and coming right away. Oh my gosh. At that point, it's like, don't be worried about getting in trouble for the joint because literally who cares if your safety's at risk, you know? Anyway, okay. As soon as we could calm down, we called the police to file a report. The operator told us that there would be officers sent out to search the woods later that night. We called it maybe 9:30 or 10 p.m. Thank God that they actually at least had somebody try to go look. The operator asked us multiple times if we were sure that no one called out to us during this experience, as well as emphasizing with us on how odd it was that we didn't hear anything from this person the whole time that we were being followed. Nothing came out of this report that I'm aware of. We were never contacted, and I'm not completely sure that the officers were actually ever sent out. That sounds weird. It sounds like the dispatcher was like accusing you of lying low-key, like they were like trying to say like, yeah, but this person would have shouted out to you. That's so weird they didn't. That sounds like they were gaslighting / trying to see if you would fess up to lying, which is really stupid. That's not their job. Like if you were lying to a cop, the cop would find out later and you'd get in trouble later. Like it's not the dispatcher's job to figure out whether you're lying in that moment. It's their job to keep you safe and get somebody there. That's annoying. Okay. Later that night, I was desperate to find any similar experiences. After some investigation, my sister and I discovered a report, trigger warning, this is where the trigger warning comes in, detailing a young woman who was lured into a wooden area and essayed. This happened almost right outside of my old neighborhood and only 15 minutes away from my current one. I don't exactly remember the details and dates now, but I wrote my original story of this encounter in my notes app on April 24th, 2004. Oh my gosh. The news report was released April 21st, 2024. I didn't realize this was so recent. Oh, okay. I guess my whole spiel. I'm guessing then you must live in a state where marijuana is illegal. And I don't know how old you are, but maybe you were still underage, because then my whole spiel about how weird it is that marijuana is like not a big deal anymore doesn't really apply to this story, because I'm assuming you're in a place where it is not legalized like my state is. And that would make more sense. Sorry for the confusion earlier. Okay. Anyway, the description of the perpetrator detailed a man with a small, short build, sounds like a runner, who was reportedly wearing all black. This would maybe explain how a person could move so quietly and why we were only able to see their flashlight. But in all honesty, I'm not 100% convinced that we experienced another human being out there. In my understanding of sexual offenders, I believe that they usually have an age preference. The woman targeted in this report was in her mid-30s. Oh, here, now you're telling us your age. While my sister and I are 10 plus years younger. I don't understand why a short, small man would now target two younger women after already being reported. I also considered that maybe I had some sort of tunneling going on with my hearing since this experience was so stressful. The only thing that makes me doubt this idea is the fact that my sister reports the exact same thing. Exactly. Hearing absolutely nothing. Now, I'm related to this sibling by marriage alone. Okay, so step sibling. I need to stop speaking in the middle of stories and just read on, because 90% of the time y'all answer the questions I have throughout the story. I need to just read the whole story. We had only lived together for about a year at this point, so considering how vastly different our personalities are, it would surprise me that we genuinely had the exact same trauma response here, if that makes any sense at all. That being said, the idea of coming face to face with some sort of entity doesn't exactly make sense to me either. When I look into my area, it's apparent that the land was highly involved in the Civil War as well as the major tobacco farming. It's said that around 40,000 Confederate troops were stationed in my now county alone. Specifically, my area is a hotspot for makeshift Confederate hospitals. I truly do believe that the land here holds a lot of energy. Maybe it's not spirits, but I don't really think that the suffering of so many people can truly just dissipate into thin air. I've experienced paranormal happenings throughout my life, but I've never encountered something that utterly terrified me like this, and I've never been so on the fence regarding what something is. Thank you so much for taking the time to read my story. This experience has really unsettled me, and if I'm being honest, I believe it's triggered some rather scary PTSD-like symptoms in these months following. I don't blame you at all. That is absolutely possible. That would trigger PTSD, I think, in most people. That is an absolutely terrifying experience. Nothing needs to physically happen to you for an experience to be terrifying and traumatizing, you know? Oof. I'm getting back into therapy and yay. Love therapy for everybody if you can do it. And trying to be more open with events I hold a lot of self-doubt for. Talking helps, and I appreciate you holding space like this for people. I've included a photo of the area, which I've tried my best to annotate, and I've also included the news report and some historical information. I do ask if you could keep the articles private, as I don't want to reveal too much about my location. Have a great rest of your summer, and that is from Anonymous. So as they said, I'm not going to share the police article or the articles that they had. However, I mean, you'll have to take my word for it. I did look at it and it is a legit report. As for the picture of the path, I am still waiting on this person to respond to me since they are so concerned about staying anonymous and doesn't want the news report and stuff attached. I want to ask them and double check that they're okay with me showing the location, because I don't know if they're still concerned that somebody can figure out around this area just based on the picture. I highly doubt it, but I am double checking with the person to make sure. So if they've responded and they say it's fine, I'll have Taylor include it right here. But if they don't respond and or they say it's not fine, we're not going to include the picture of that. It doesn't change the story that much. It doesn't change the scariness of the story. It just shows the layout. I just want to say I'm so sorry that this happened to you. Absolutely ridiculous. No matter what it was, I don't know. My personal opinion would definitely be a real person because of the flashlight. Like, especially if it just looked like a flashlight, to me, that makes it seem like it was most likely a real person then holding a flashlight. And especially you saw a jogger and everything. They were stalking you. They were being creepy. So thank you so much for your story, Anonymous. I hope that you are able to heal through therapy and you're able to talk about this with somebody and everything too, because that's just so scary and nobody deserves to have something like that happen to you, especially when you're like so scared to get in trouble for stuff like weed. Is just also like, it's just stupid to me. Not that you're stupid for being afraid of that. I totally understand why you're afraid of getting busted for that, especially if you're under 21. But it's stupid to me that we have to be so scared of it. Again, not advocating for people underage doing drugs or anything like that. Of course not. Like you yourself said that. I'm not advocating for that whatsoever. I think that people that are legal adults and, you know, over the age of 21 are capable of making that decision themselves. And so I just think marijuana is just is less scary than alcohol, in my opinion. So I just get mad when it like prevents people from possibly finding help or getting help for something like a really scary situation like this. And they're too scared to find help because of something as not detrimental compared to other substances such as marijuana. Okay, the next story for today starts. Hi, Hannah. My name is Alea. I'm so sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Alea, but I think it's Alea. At the time of this story, my sister, mom, and I left an abusive situation and moved into a home. The house was old, the carpets were stained, and the walls had cracks and scuffs, but the rent was cheap. The second floor had only 2 rooms that were me and my sister's, while the first floor had every other room, including the bathroom and subsequently the basement. The floor of the bathroom had a crater-sized dip in the middle and only one dim lamp on the sink countertop. To the right of the toilet, there was a door held shut by a hook and an eye-door latch. The door in the bathroom led to the basement of the house. Down steep wooden steps, the basement was low and dark. Most notably, however, was the stone structure in the middle of the room. It was made of concrete that touched from floor to ceiling. It was 4 walls inside the basement with windows and a door. It was as if a stone house was put in the center of the room, but it could only realistically fit a child. Oh, that's so bizarre. The rest of the room was stone, and in an alcove was scrap wood like chair legs and personal items. While clearing the niche, a family member of mine found an antique child's shoe, a filthy black leather shoe with a strap in the center. Newspaper under the floorboards would later date the shoe back to the early 1900s. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. You attached a picture of the shoe, so I'm gonna have Taylor put it here so you guys could see. I love it. That reminds me, I also have little shoes from my grandma that I don't think I'm going to share on this channel because they're too precious. I don't want to make them, I don't know. It just feels weird. It's like the one like real like heirloom I have from my grandma, and they were from when she was a toddler and she was born in 1930. And I still have these cute little pairs of shoes that were from that year, and they look very similar to the shoes that you found. That's like a really special item to me. Anyway, okay. The door to the basement made the bathroom a harrowing experience for every shower, being illuminated by one lamp surrounded by yellowing floral paper. However, my trepidation about the house felt unwarranted until one night. It sounds kind of like the Haunting of Hill House, but a smaller version of it. It was late at night, my mom, sister, and I in our respective rooms asleep. A crashing noise woke me up, but only briefly before I went back to sleep. It wouldn't be until the morning when I saw what had occurred. A mirror that sat between me and my sister's room had been shattered. When going down the stairs, the mirror outside of the bathroom would also have cracks running through it. An unassuming butter knife laid beside it. Nobody in the house knew what had caused it. The last occurrence before we left the home happened a number of months after the mirror situation. One night, a woman came to our door, pounding on it repeatedly. When the man my mom was dating answered the door, the woman started screaming and crying. She said we had her child. She demanded that we let her in. She said her child was in our basement. My mom's boyfriend shut the door on her, and we all assumed she was crazy. She paced the neighborhood and returned to our house a few more times before I never saw her again. I do not believe in ghosts, nor do I believe anything sinister happened in that house. However, there were a few strange events that occurred in that house, as well as things that were discovered. The mirrors could be blamed on the kitten that we had recently adopted, but that theory loses believability because 2 mirrors were broken on the opposite sides of the house. The woman who approached our door most definitely had some kind of mental illness or problem with drug abuse. Unfortunately, that would be my first encounter with such an experience. Everything else I am unsure of. Attached is a photo of what the shoe looked like and a picture of the house. I already showed you the shoe, but here's a picture of the house. A family friend of mine fit the shoe perfectly. The house was built in exactly 1900. Thank you for reading my story, Hannah. I hope to hear your input. I've been watching for over a year, and a lot of what you say leaves me shaking my head in agreement. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'll continue to watch. Give your rats some love for me. Sincerely, Alea. Thank you so much, Alea. The rats are on antibiotics right now. I took them to the vet to check their little lungs because one of them had been sneezing, and alas, they are on antibiotics, a 2-week course, but they're doing fine. That's normal for rats. Rats have very, very delicate respiratory systems, if you don't know, and many of them often need antibiotics. And in spite of all my efforts of vacuuming their room as much as possible and having a good air filter in this room right close to their cage to keep the air as pure as possible for them, it still just happens. So other than that, they're doing good, and I will give them some love. Thank you so much for your story. Love the shoe. It reminds me of my grandma's shoe. The house looks really creepy. I think you're right about the old woman who came to your door. Unless you had like paranormal activity that went along with the old woman's story, like I would be way more creeped out by the woman if you had like heard babies crying or had heard a baby crying coming from the basement or something like that. But since she was just coming to the door randomly, it sounded way more like she was having a mental health crisis, like you said, or possibly meth can explain a lot of weird mysteries and cases in this world. I think a lot of people often overlook meth and the stuff that it can do to people. So as for the mirrors, I don't know. That is really creepy. The only thing I can imagine is that, like you said, the house was set up so weirdly, and all the concrete and the way that it was just kind of, you said it was cheap rent and everything. The only thing I can think of is that something shifted in the house and made the mirror fall down. If you are looking for non-paranormal explanations, like perhaps something in the house settled or something and it for some reason shifted the mirror. Or sometimes I also think that we have small earthquakes that we don't detect, or they don't wake us up because they're not big enough to wake us up, but they are still able to then move objects around and stuff like that. I still wonder if that's what happened to Rug Lady. You know, I talked about that on the main channel recently, and I kind of still wonder if that explains a lot of her first experience that she thinks like her laptop breaking and stuff, but who knows? Okay, and story 4 for today. We're actually only going to do 4 stories today since the second story was so very long and about 2 stories worth. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I love long stories, don't get me wrong, but we try to keep them all about the same length, all the videos about the same length. Okay, so this story goes, "Hi Hannah, please keep me anonymous." Got you. I worked as tech on night shift at this behavioral health facility in the teens unit. The facility had a large open space that was in the shape of a triangle. All the patients were visible from the nurses station at the bottom of the triangle, and there was a sally port where our break room was, and the other side was another unit mirrored. These 2 units were connected by a back hallway that we used for overflow or if we had a particular violent patient. This night, I had a coworker back there watching a patient. It was around 2 a.m., maybe 3 a.m. when we had an admission. So the nurse does her thing and we send the kid to bed. The nurse tells me that she's going to take a smoke break. This leaves me at the nurse station alone, and my coworker is in the back. I'm standing in the middle of the desk getting our new patient charts together when out of nowhere, the main light to the nurse's station turns on. I'm nowhere near any light switches and my coworker can't access the light from the back hallway. I'm legit spooked. Probably the first time ever I felt the hair on my neck stand up. There was no one around me. The building isn't old either. It's 4 to 5 years old at the time. I look towards the entrance of the unit because I swear to this day I heard someone talking. I know this because I relaxed a little, thinking that it was the nurse. She was known to play pranks and is very much skeptical, but she didn't show up. I went to check the closest light switch, and when my hand was an inch away from the light switch, the light turned back off. Soon after, my nurse came back and swore up and down that she didn't do anything, and even she couldn't explain what happened. That's my scary story. Well, the only one that I can't explain today. Love your content, and that was from Anonymous, as we said. Isn't that so funny? Sorry, side tangent, but isn't it so funny that so many nurses smoke? That they like literally go to school to be a nurse and they all tell you, you know, to not do unhealthy things for your body. But a lot of nurses ironically smoke. And I used to work in a medical setting briefly. I know I've worked at a lot of places, okay? I've career hopped my whole life. And I worked for a pediatric clinic once. And so I did work a lot directly with nurses, pediatric nurses. And one of them told me once that it was nursing school, that nursing school often gets nurses either addicted to drugs sometimes, which I have some horror stories about that are not mine to share, or they just start smoking because they're so stressed trying to get through nursing school that they end up picking up these habits. And then that combined with being in contact with more people that can provide them drugs on the drug side, cigarettes, obviously they can go buy at the store. And it's really sad that we stress people out so much. I have another friend in my friend group who is in pharmaceutical school, or she has her license, but she's working in the pharmacies and stuff. And it's just crazy how burnt out she gets and how they just are like, because they take advantage of the med students that are out of school so they can do stuff and work, but they're not yet like officially getting the high pay grade. So they're way underpaid, but then they work them so hard and they justify it by like, this happens in med school too for doctors as well. They try to justify it because they're like, well, you're in training, you're the newbie, you gotta blah, 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 blah. And it's just so scary because it's like, I don't want my doctors and nurses to be sleep deprived, or my pharmacists for that matter. You know what I mean? I have been in the hospital before. I have seen a lot of doctors. I do not want any of them to be sleep deprived. Like, don't you want your doctors and people working on people's health and literally surgeons cutting into people to be well rested? Like, it's so weird to me. It's so backwards. I feel like we should be helping anybody in the medical field get the best work-life balance that they could possibly get, no matter what stage of schooling or training or their career they're in, because like, we want those people to be actually good at their job, and it's hard to be good at your job without enough sleep. Side tangent, but I just find that so interesting because you said that the nurse tells you like, I'm gonna go get a smoke, and that's just so common. Anyway, okay, as for the light, you said you had a patient admitted that night. Is it not possible? I'm assuming, I don't know how these facilities work. I would assume at night when there's a curfew that everybody's either locked in their rooms or they have rooms where they're not allowed to leave certain times. So I would assume it's not them. But have you ever checked the building to make sure that there's not like a switch that can turn off that light that was in your room or something? So even if it wasn't your other nurse, like maybe it was somebody else or another staff member walking by and switching it and messing with you. That's a stretch though, I know, because like, again, for all I know, you guys were the only two people working at that time and everything like that. Yeah, you didn't really say anything about how many people were working there. Was there no janitors or no other like overseeing doctors or other nurses there that possibly could have done it or accidentally messed with a switch that affected your switch, or messed with a breaker box somewhere and then was like, oops, and turned it back on? Like, did you think through all of those possibilities? Is just where my brain goes, but it's really hard for me to know. Like, I'm not saying that that's what it is. I'm not saying it's not paranormal activity, because it's really hard for me to know without actually being there and seeing the facility for myself and doing some investigating myself. Either way, as far as you know, it wasn't another coworker, so that probably makes it incredibly terrifying for you. Oh, okay. We're going to call it there, you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is day 3. Please like the video to help the channel. Please subscribe if you'd like more videos like this. That's all we do on this channel. Read and react to your personal scary stories. If you have a personal scary story that you would like to submit, directions on how to do that are below, always in the description. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much. I will see you tomorrow for day 4. Okay, bye.